What's happened in Region 3? Let's go through a few slides and just talk about it. The contents of today: what is GOVA Virginia? Talk a little bit about our growth and diversification plan, a little bit about grants and how to apply, and other ways to get involved. What is GOVA Virginia? GO stands for growth and opportunity. And I think the main thing that we need to think about, as this is a little different than most of the economic development organization, this is a business-led organization. I think of our 19 council members, 13 of them are business folks. They may have other roles as well, but they're business people. So that makes it a little bit different. So when you get in these council meetings, the questions are a little different because they're coming from people that operate businesses or have been involved in business most of their working lives. What's the goal? The goal is high-paying jobs. One of the things I heard W. Wynn say early in the process when we were talking about this is high-paying jobs produce other jobs, medium-paying jobs, low-paying jobs, not the other way around. And I had to think about that a little bit, but if you think about it, it's true. If you think about people that come into the area that are high-paying positions, then other services are going to follow. And so that's why we concentrate on these high-paying jobs, because other jobs will then follow, from that. Who is GO Virginia? As you can see, Region 3 is 13 jurisdictions. 15 jurisdictions, 13 counties, 2 cities. It's the size of Rhode Island and Connecticut. Think about that a minute. It's also the least populous of any of the regions. One of the things we found out early on is that it's pretty easy to see at least 3 sub-regions. If you're in the northern part of the region, Buckingham, Cumberland, Amelia, you're pretty closely identified with the Richmond area. If you're in southern Mecklenburg and Brunswick and Halifax, you're probably more identified with Raleigh. I serve on Benchmark Community Bank. I'm board chair there, and one of our board members lives in Palmer's Point, which is right on the lake. So those of you around the lake probably know where that is. So whenever there's an election in Virginia, he always asks me about who's running, because all of his information comes out of North Carolina. And then the western part of the region, certainly more closely aligned with Roanoke, Lynchburg, even Greensboro. So you have these 3 sub-regions, and if you think about it, there's very few, if any, communications channels that go east-west. You would think they would be there because you got 58 running the whole way, but it just doesn't flow quite that way. So one of the things we've tried to do through website and other things is to try to start to create that east-west communications channel. And certainly part of you being here today is doing that as well. I think one of the best examples that I can give you about things that happen in the region that you really don't know about, our first organizational meeting, we had a gentleman, I think it was Henry County, that operated a propane distributorship. And so he was looking for truck drivers to drive a propane truck. Well, you just can't give one of those things to anybody, so you got to be careful who you have driving those trucks. He was seated, and one of his, we went around the room and said, okay, what are some of your challenges? What causes you problems? He said, I can't find anybody to drive a truck. He was seated beside Al Roberts from Southside Virginia Community College, who operated a truck driving school in South Boston. They didn't know about each other. Now, they did after the meeting. But that's the kind of communications that we need to foster. We need to know what's going on across the region, not just north and south, but certainly east and west. Why it's good to be in Region 3? Now, here comes the technology part. Let's see if this works. Liz?
It's good to be in GO Virginia Region 3 because they understand the importance of investing in our youth and building relationships.
I can meet with and identify stakeholders in this region and realize that our problems are connected with other areas across the region, and we can provide solutions together.
On a networking level, we've made great contacts, we've seen new clients, new potential clients, but also we've seen our competition, because it's easy to get complacent and just do what you've been doing. So it's a good reminder that you're not the only one out there doing it, so that you continue to make yourself better.
Your region doesn't encompass any metro areas or research universities, and so what this region has to do is the very spirit of GOVA Virginia, which is to collaborate, cooperate, and work together.
It's great to be in GOVA Virginia Region 3 because we are a model of collaboration for all of Virginia. I'm just excited to be here to learn about all of the great things that are happening across our region.
Being in GOVA Virginia Region 3 is an opportunity for the counties in the region to work together, to collaborate, to show the outside world that we are an area where business opportunities exist.
So as a business owner, it's wonderful to be in Region 3 because we can work together with all the other groups that are here and make our region even better.
I've never been part of a region quite like this one, where you have 3 community colleges, 3 higher learning institutions, economic development offices, and local elected officials all working together for workforce development, which we think is the most critical tool in economic development for attracting new industry.
I think that's certainly important for us to take away today, this idea of collaboration, working together. How can we make it better? How can we learn from one another? So who's behind GOVA Virginia in Region 3? Who's the council? These are the names that, of I guess, half of the council. Some of those names you'll probably recognize. You see a lot of them do a couple of different things, but a lot of business up there. So as you see these folks around in your community, thank them for their time. This was an interesting organization to stand up. We actually had to start working on forming before we had the authority to get started and act and form. So it was a little bit counterintuitive, but we had to start to organize before we had the authority from the state to actually get organized, which doesn't make much sense, but that's what we had to do. And we had a lot of discussions about how to do that. It's been a learning process for us all. And I think the state has learned a lot. I remember Carl Starber made the comment, he said, you know, it's kind of like being in your car and having your foot on the gas pedal all the way to the floor and having your other foot on the brake pedal all the way to the floor. You're spinning your wheels, but it doesn't feel like you're getting anywhere. The business people were pushing to go faster, and the state was saying, wait a minute, you know, we can't move that fast. And I think what you've seen over the last 3.5 years is a merging of those two, so that now I think the process is a lot more efficient from a project standpoint, from a what we can do, what we can't do standpoint than it was certainly at the very beginning. So again, I thank all those folks that have contributed to Region 3 and the time that they've given. It's been interesting to say the least. What have we accomplished so far? We have several projects that are in process. The biggest one is GoTech 1 and GoTech 2. You'll hear from those folks a little bit later, Tammy, to talk about what's going on there if you're not familiar with it at all. It's an initiative to get into the middle schools of all of our jurisdictions in Region 3 and show them the different pathways for various careers that might be available to them. And this is, you know, sometimes we think about, well, you know, people know how to get from point A to point B. Well, most of us, when we were in middle school, probably didn't have much of an idea what we were going to do when we got out of high school, much less college, other than our parents saying, you're going to get out and go to work and find a job. But this is a way to give them some ideas of and some training into what types of things are available to them. So this is a project, the two combined, GoTech 1 and GoTech 2, I think there's about $5.5 million total in GOVA Virginia money pledged to this. This has gotten a tremendous amount of play statewide. We're actually partnering with Region 1, right, in Wytheville. to bring part of this to that region as well. So this is a big deal, certainly for our region, but this is a case where the state is watching. If this works, no pressure, Julie and Tammy, but folks are looking at this. The second one there is the Southern Innovation Hub, which if you came down 501, you went by the construction site. This will be this is a partnership between Microsoft and Mid-Atlantic Broadband. Part of the facility, the building will be Mid-Atlantic Broadband's offices, and then the first floor will be an innovation hub. One of the things we've tried to do as NBC and now partnering with GOVA Virginia is, ever since Microsoft has been here, is how do we get a logo? You know, if you've ridden by the data center on Route 58, you ride by and it's nice what you can see of it, but there's no logo. It's just an address. So we said we need a logo we can take a picture of and use, and this is an opportunity to do that. Microsoft is going to provide a lot of the programming on the first floor of this facility, and our participation as GO Virginia was to provide some of the planning money and some of the information that helped to convince Microsoft that this was an idea that would work in Southern Virginia. So we're looking forward to that. And I'll just add, if you didn't know, that Microsoft data center, if it is not now, it is certainly heading to be one of the largest, if not the largest, Microsoft data center in the world. So it's a big deal happening in Boydton, Virginia. I often tell people we got to take a tour of that facility fairly early on, and when you walk into their operations center, there were 5 clocks on the wall. There was 1 clock for Redmond, Washington, 1 clock for Chicago, Illinois, Tokyo, Japan, Dublin, Ireland, and Boydton, Virginia. Boydton a little bit different than those other 4. What's been accomplished so far, I'm not going to read those to you, but obviously you'll see a lot of what's been done is stressing communication. Meetings like this, committees that some of you were probably involved in early on when we talked about our growth and diversification plan or worked on that. A lot of marketing activities, letterpress. Elsa is somewhere in the back. Thanks to Elsa, your team, and everybody for the work that you've done and really helped us with that. We're looking forward to a lot more of that. What are we doing now? Obviously, we're 3.5 years into this, and so we decided under the leadership of the state board that we needed to look at what was working now well, and then look at some things that we thought we needed to change. And so over the last month, we've had work group meetings. I think Charlie's been in 2 of them, or maybe there's one coming Friday, I think, if I'm not mistaken. And then I attended the other 2, and I think Liz has been to all of them. So this is to look at some things like if you've applied for a grant, you know that you can't use Tobacco Commission funds as matching, as part of the match. Well, there's legislation there before the General Assembly to allow that. That had to be a change to the actual code to make that happen. And that's one of the things that has been feedback from certainly regions 1 and 3 on that. We're working on an entrepreneurship and innovation strategy. We have a lot of innovation assets in the region. We have a lot of entrepreneurs that are in the region. This is to look at the assets that are available and see if we can figure out a way to tie those folks together. Broadband, we all know broadband is an issue. When you talk to somebody, broadband's a problem of some sort. There's a lot more activity going on with broadband in the region now than there was even really 6 months ago. If you've looked at the news, you'd probably see upwards of almost $100 million that's been deployed or about to be deployed in the region to solve some of the last mile broadband. So we're looking at that pretty heavily as well. Personnel recruitment, we're looking to hire a full-time executive director. I don't think that's what the title is, but that's close. Liz and her team and Nancy have, and also Southside Planning Commission, Deb is somewhere in the room as well, have really helped us get organized. But this is somebody that will get up every day thinking about Region 3 Go Virginia and what can I do in Region 3 to make this work better. So we're excited about that. It's a partnership between Go Virginia Region 3 and the Weldon Cooper Center. We think that has advantages in and of itself because it opens a whole new area of potential communication, certainly potential investment by partnering with them to provide this full time. Liz is not going anywhere. But I think she's probably decided, like my wife told me, that I failed at retirement. So this will be somebody that will be in the region, actually be located here, that will work with Go Virginia. And we're also looking to fill a couple of spots on the regional council. I'm back to this piece of paper. So if you have an interest in that, let us know. Growth and diversification plan. I'm not going to read a lot of this. You can look at it yourself. It was last updated. We have to update that every 2 years. So we did that in 2019. I think bottom line, there were not a lot of changes from the original plan. But what this plan does is it governs the investments that we make. In other words, if it's not in your growth and diversification plan, you're not going to get a project approved at the state level at all. You've got to have a project that fits within these guidelines within that growth and diversification plan. If it doesn't, we can't fund it. And there's been a lot of discussion about that. What should be in there, what isn't in there, and I think we'll see one of the ones on the next slide, Liz, that you'll see at the bottom is healthcare. That's a big discussion right now. Healthcare is not considered a traded sector. So it's not part of Go Virginia. But obviously we know from our region that some of our highest paying jobs are in the medical field. Not only that, if you think about our hospitals along Route 58, whether it's South Hill, South Boston, Danville, Martinsville, some of their service area is in North Carolina. So the stronger they are, then the more people we bring in to the region from out of state. That's also one of the things that Go Virginia is looking at. How do we bring investment from out of state into Virginia? And then I think the last thing, I'm sure if you look at, I don't know where the survey comes from, but there's something called this health outcome survey, and they show the health outcomes by county in the state, and usually it's published in the Richmond Times-Dispatch. Well, if you look at Go Virginia Region 3, it's all red. Red is not good. So if I'm a business looking to locate in the region, I'm going to be concerned about the health care and the health of my employees that are there. Obviously, that's a problem. So this is an area that we've looked at to see if we can get the state to agree that health care needs to be a piece of that. The rest of those, I think, haven't changed. And I think they would be fairly typical from what you would expect. But again, these are the things that govern whether we can get a project approved or not. If we can't make them fit into one of these buckets, then it's not a project that Go Virginia can fund. On our project list, I think it's 9 or 10 projects that are listed, there's a column that says, here's the number of the priority that it satisfies in the growth of a diversification plan. So if that box is blank, that's not a project that we can fund. Now, that may mean we need to change the growth and diversification plan, but that's something we'd have to figure out, have to do that and then move forward from there. And we'll certainly hear about the middle one today. Certainly sites is, if you remember, I think originally Go Virginia wasn't going to really do much with sites, but that's been something that's been added as we've gone through the process. So But again, most of those I think are typical, haven't changed a lot from the original plan. And again, that's what determines what we can invest in. Other ways to get involved, you can see that sheet there. And again, I'm back to the card. So if you have an interest, fill it out. Contact who you need to contact. Don't contact me. Contact Liz. And you can see where you can there's plenty of ways to find us.